seated. I have some announcements. Sorry.
As we gather this morning, as we do so on the ancestral and current homelands of the Shoshone, Paiute, Goshute, and Ute tribes. As Unitarian Universalists, we acknowledge the complex and violent history that resulted in the stealing of these lands and the cultural and physical genocide perpetuated against its people at the hands and policies of white colonial settlers. We commit ourselves to undoing these harms, and we seek to authentically and honestly engage in the necessary work that will produce justice for those disenfranchised and that promotes healing for the whole of the earth and all its people. Good morning, I am Daryl Bridges. My pronouns are he and him. Welcome to all of us gathered here in the sanctuary and those of us at home in our virtual audience. We extend an especially warm welcome to those of you who are visiting with us for the first, second, or third times. We are so glad that you are here with us, and we look forward to getting to know you. There's a lot happening here at SVU US, and the Happenings Weekly newsletter is your best way to stay up to date. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already via the link in the virtual order of service. The QR code is available at the welcoming table in the front, as well as in the front of the hardback songbooks. I will turn it over to Reverend Laura for announcements.
Okay. I have a couple of announcements that I forgot to give to Daryl, so I'll just do them. As a resounding acknowledgement of our return from a pandemic world, we actually have 4 different things going on after church this afternoon. It's amazing. We have our Over 60 Lunch Club. If you're interested in that, you can contact Judy Miller. It starts today at 12:30. You can find out which restaurant they're going to. Everyone 60 and better is welcome. We have our Starting Point Newcomers group finishing its 3rd session, and that's with Brenda Voisard. If you're interested in joining that group in a future time, please see Brenda as well. We have our small group with Susan Izagiri, and we have our humanist group with Phil Quigley online. So all of those are either listed in your happenings, or you can find more information by talking to our administrator after church, Brenda Julander. I also want to create some space for us here, that we are in the midst of a legislative session in the state of Utah that is bringing a lot of harm to the people that we care about in this community. And this week, especially with the passage of an anti-trans bill that would prohibit minors from accessing medical care, we want to hold space for that. And we want to say also that we do not accept that legislation. It is contra science, it is contra compassion, and is contrary to everything we hold dear for our youth and our minors here in this great state of Utah. I'm really glad to share with you also that our board president, Sophia Haas-Tingey, maybe you can raise your hand, Sophia, everyone knows who you are. She's been actively advocating and working with medical providers to find loopholes so that minors can continue to receive the care that is currently being denied to them. It is so good to see so many of you. I have one last thing just to contextualize for you today. We are going to be talking about addiction and recovery today. This is a difficult topic, and it touches on many of our lives. In fact, probably most of our lives in some fashion or another, either personally or in our family and friend group. I encourage you to take good care of yourselves during this worship and in the days to come. If you feel like you need someone to talk to, either during the service or after the service, Dr. Jordan Roberts has agreed to sit with you at that time, as well as myself in the days to come following the service. So please reach out if you need a little bit of extra care this morning. Let's take a moment to greet each other. I see a lot of new people, and I'm so glad that you are here. So those of you who have been here for a while, maybe introduce yourself to someone that you don't yet know. to
Good morning, everybody. I'm supposed to start, so it's loud. Good morning, all. Chopsticks, right? Okay. That's your invitation to. All right. Let us light our chalice, the symbol of our faith. Are there any small, young at heart people that would like to help me light the chalice this morning? Okay, come on up. If you are already familiar with our chalice lighting words, then you can say them from your heart. Otherwise, they are also printed in your order of service. So we light this chalice for the warmth of love, for the light of truth, and for the energy of action. Thank you, Spencer. Okay, so Spencer, you can come stay up here if you want. We're going to have our story for all ages, and we have Daryl going to tell our story today.
I would invite up anyone who is young of body, heart, mind, and come join me in the story, and hopefully I won't give you terrible feedback. All right. Give everyone just a second. So how are you all today? Good. All right. So I'm going to tell you a story that was told to me by a friend, but I'm going to need your help for parts of it. So I'm going to need you to be ready. So this is a story based on a Native American legend about coyote and rabbit. So long, long ago, when the world was young, people were, by comparison to the other animals, they were a little worrying. Coyote was watching and was like, wow, humans don't have any fur, they don't have claws, they don't have sharp teeth. How are they going to get by in this world? So Coyote decided that he was going to help out. But being Coyote, he didn't want to do it all himself. So he started to go to some of his friends, and one of his friends he went to was Rabbit. And he went to Rabbit and said to Rabbit, Rabbit, I've been looking at humans, and they don't look so great. So I want to see if you can help me out here. You're strong, right? And Rabbit looks at Coyote and is like, well, I guess, but I'm not that strong. You know who's strong? Who's an animal who's strong?
Bear.
A bear? Ooh, elephant. Joy. I heard bear first, so we'll go with bear. Rabbit goes, bear is strong. And Coyote says, okay, good point. So Coyote goes to Bear and asks Bear, Bear, will you give humanity a little bit of your strength? And Bear says, sure, I'll give them a little bit of my strength. And so Coyote takes a little bit of strength from Bear and gives it to humanity. And still better, not great. Humans, a little bit stronger now, but they can't outrun something trying to eat them. So he goes back to Rabbit. Coyote looks at Rabbit. Rabbit, you're fast, right? And Rabbit says, well, I'm fairly fast, but you know who's fast? Cheetah, okay. Cheetah. Well, hummingbird is fast. It's true. I think I heard cheetah first. We'll go with cheetah. And Rabbit goes, cheetah. Cheetah's fast. Okay, so Coyote says, oh, good point. So he goes to cheetah and asks cheetah, you've seen humanity. Can you give them a little bit of your speed? And cheetah says, sure. So Coyote gives them a little bit of their speed. And this continues for a little while. Coyote asks, oh, Rabbit, you have such big ears. You must have great hearing. Rabbit's like, oh, I've got good hearing, but who's got really great hearing? Cat. Owl? I heard cat, so we'll say cat. Coyote went to cat. And
Cat is also fast.
that's also true.
And selfies.
And got a little bit of cat's hearing and brought it back. And repeated this a few times, each time going to Rabbit, and Rabbit always being like, well, I could do it, but there's someone who's better at it than me. And so finally, Coyote was looking at what he had helped humanity with. Humanity was stronger, they were smarter, they were faster, they could hear. Also, yeah, very true. And Coyote was like, maybe I've overdone it. Maybe I've given humanity too much. And so he went back to Rabbit and asked Rabbit one last thing. He's like, Rabbit, I feel like I've gone too far. Maybe I've given humanity too much. What could we give them that might, sort of help even things out? And Rabbit was thinking about it. Was like, I don't know, Bear is stronger than me, and Cheetah was faster, and Cat was able to hear better, and all these other animals were just stronger than me. And Coyote said, I think I've got it. Rabbit, will you give some of your humility to humanity? And Rabbit was like, I can do that. And so the final thing that Coyote gave to humanity, and his last gift before setting them free in the world, was the gift from Rabbit. It was just a little bit of humility to help balance out everything else. And that's the story of how we got to be who we are today. I don't know if the pancake's an animal, though.
I'm a pancake. Look at how fat I am.
Well, that's our story for today. Hopefully you can kind of keep that in your head as you think through the week, as you go about your activities. And in fact, we have an activity for you today downstairs, an art activity in the social hall. So if you'll join me in singing all the children out.
I'd like to invite, we have a special guest this morning, Sam Greeny with The Other Side, The Other Side is our giving partner this month, who we're sharing half of our plate with, and he's graciously agreed to step in for Kathy, who got stuck in Logan this morning with the snow. So please welcome Sam to tell us a little bit more about our giving partner.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. My name is Sam. My pronouns are he, him. And I'm just really honored and excited to be here today. The energy in this room is very special to me. I come from a religious background. It's not one that I participate in anymore, but there's parts of it that I long for. And I feel a little overwhelmed with the level of inclusivity and care that I feel in this room. So thank you. And on behalf of the village, thank you for being willing to support us. We have a saying, you'll see it written on the back of our jackets and shirts. It takes a village. And we think that's true for building a village too. And this is a village that's coming together to support us and make our work possible. So we're grateful for your interest in our project and your belief in what we're doing. So I'm just going to walk you through real quick what our mission statement is and kind of break it down because it does the best job possible at really getting to the core of what we're trying to do. So our mission statement is to create a self-reliant, peer-led village that provides a safe, dignified, and uplifting life for those who've been chronically unsheltered and which brings them and the larger community into mutually ennobling relationships. So a lot of fancy jargon, big terms in there. But if we take it one step at a time, it starts out by being a self-reliant, peer-led village. Self-reliant means that we run social enterprises out of the nonprofit, and our goal is to be operationally self-sufficient. We believe that in order to sustain our mission, creating a firm footing for our future is the only way to really keep our mission and our values pure. And so we run businesses. You might have seen The Other Side Academy, our sister organization, has the moving company, has the thrift trucks that you'll see around town, #1 rated moving company in Utah. But what we do at the village is we have a couple that we've started. One is a donut business that will be opening up our first location on the west side over the next couple months. So if you like donuts, that's a very easy way to support us. It supports occupational opportunities for our neighbors. Neighbors is what we call our clients. And it also creates our ability to be self-reliant, to sustain ourselves. We also have a plant arrangement business. So theothersidearrangements.com, or if you go to either of our thrift stores, you'll see us there too. Those arrangements are made by members of our community. They design them, they get to bring their whole selves and their stories to the process, and it's really an active therapy for them. Working in the dirt is itself therapeutic, but it gives you a non-verbal way to process some of your past. And then when we're moving forward, so peer-led village, very importantly, this isn't a place that we're trying to set up with our rules and standards and telling others how to live the life that we think they need to live. It's peer-led. The goal of the village is to create a place where people can come together and set and hold their own standards as a community, giving them the tools they need to enforce the kind of standards that they're not able to do on the streets because they don't have access to the kinds of services that you need to do so. And then to provide a safe, dignified, and uplifting life for those who've been chronically unsheltered. So we're specifically targeting the hardest to reach of the unsheltered population, those who've been on the streets for a year or more over the last few years. Oftentimes it's 5, 10, 20 years of a person's life. And that brings them and the larger community into mutually ennobling relationships. So the foundation of our whole philosophy is not that we're trying to create a place to put away an eyesore and hide away a problem. It's actually that the only way the village will succeed is if it's intimately linked and interdependent with the community that surrounds it. We believe that we will rely on not just the good graces of communities like yourself, but our businesses will rely on the larger community, and our neighbors rely on others to have relationships and to create lives of meaning and value. And so that's really the mission and the vision of the village. Unfortunately, since I was filling in, I won't have time to stay for the whole session this morning, but I brought business cards and I brought some stickers. If you have questions, if you're interested in volunteering or just getting a tour and seeing more of what we do, we would love to have you. I know that this is a congregation that appreciates more than, just a surface level relationship, and that's what we're looking for. We need people who want, a lifetime partnership with what we're trying to build. So if that interests you, we would love to talk. Thank you again for your support, and I look forward to getting to know more of you.
This community, our church, and its many ministries are only made possible by the gifts you give of your time, your talent, and your treasure. Many of you pledge monthly to support our work, and for this, we are grateful. Your gifts help to ensure that we are able to live our lives of love and justice in the world outside. Part of the ministry at South Valley includes sharing our Sunday worship offerings with charitable organizations that align with our principles and values. This month, we are sharing with the other side, whom we just heard about, for their work. So please join me in reading our offertory words. They are presented in your order of service. For some reason, I have them in front of me and just didn't read them. We are this church. We are its hands, its heart, its voice. Together, we share the wealth of this community and sustain it with our gifts. We'll now accept this offering. For those of you at home, you are invited to use the giving link in the online order of service. I invite the ushers to come forward at this time.
South Valley. This morning I'll be singing for you and for your loved ones and for my loved ones who struggle with addiction, including my brother, Asher. Bring him home from Les Miserables. God on high, hear my prayer in my need. You have always been there. He is young, he's afraid. Let him rest, heaven blessed. Bring him home, bring him home, bring him home. He's like the son I might have known if God had granted me a son. The summers die one by one, how soon they fly on, and I am old and will be gone. Bring him peace, bring him joy. He is young, he is only a boy. You can take, you can give. Let him be, let him live. If I die, let me die
Jordan, thank you for honoring us with the gift of your voice this morning. For all that we have found the courage to give, may we be truly grateful. May these gifts be a blessing on South Valley and on the important work of the other side. Join me now in a quieter, more reflective space, a space for reflection, meditation, or prayer. Come, whoever you are, is how we often start our worship services. So as we enter into this time of worship, come. Come, whoever you are, whether you have laughter in your heart or tears in your eyes, whether you have blue eyes or brown eyes, long hair or short hair, whoever you love, however you speak, whatever your ability, know that you are welcome here. Join me in that good ground of silence here. Come, whoever you are. Say that in your heart until you know that it is true. Say it to another so that they know what welcome and belonging may feel like. May we walk and journey together in this place of welcome and belonging. May it be so.
I remember being young, quite young, when I realized one Christmas that I had not seen my Uncle Wendell for some time. And I, like any young child, asked, where was my uncle, who would so eagerly carry me on his shoulders, was always happy to play, and had a big, goofy mustache? And I don't remember the answer, and it didn't make much sense to me as a child, but the message was clear. I likely wouldn't see Wendell again. And some years later, when I was older, one of my eldest cousins, Jeremy, began to act strange, as did everyone around him. Sometimes he would show up at family events, and sometimes he wouldn't. And there was always a vague excuse as to why he wasn't around. He was visiting someone, or maybe at work. Or better, just don't ask. It had struck me as odd, but I was still young, so I let it go. Until I remember going to visit with my aunt and my uncles at their home when I was about 12. My other cousin and I went to play video games in his room, as 12-year-olds are ought to do, when I saw he had a locking deadbolt on his bedroom door. Odd. I asked him, naively looking back, why would he have a bolt on his own bedroom door? And it was so his brother and my cousin Jeremy wouldn't steal his things. And it wasn't too long after that that Jeremy disappeared from my life, and others would follow him. Uncle Scotty, Tim, Stacy, Don, Sheila. And in contrast, my own mother rejected all things alcoholic aggressively. Not so much a beer would be welcome in her house, not even a glass of wine would be had at my brother's wedding. It all seemed excessive. But eventually, I understood that the pain that those things had brought her in her life influenced her, and that she was trying to protect her family from experiencing what she grew up with. Many years later, I was working in a homeless shelter as a chaplain, where mostly I just listened to stories. I listened to funny stories, I listened to sad stories, stories that stirred my heart because there was a deep familiarity to them. No single story ever matched any of my other experiences perfectly, but they often rhymed. Tales of loss, grief, pain, and addiction. While working at the shelter, I was asked by a friend of a friend of a friend to help conduct a funeral for a man who, at 32 years of age, had died of liver failure in rural Wyoming, far from his family in Massachusetts. His sister was sent to me because she heard I would be sympathetic to a man who had lived most of his adult life on the streets, fighting and struggling with something no one in their family understood. I remember talking with the deceased man's mother as she tried to make sense of this tragedy, to glean some logic from an illness that doesn't make sense to someone not experiencing it. But mostly, I remember being at the graveside where she wept. She wept the same tears that thousands of parents have wept before her. They were the same tears I remember weeping when one of my cousins died. They were the tears of someone who had loved deeply and lost. His mother hugged me after the service very tightly, and we stood there for a time, just looking at the little wooden box that was all that was left of her son, and we talked about the daughter he left behind. In her granddaughter, she still had hope and purpose and a continuation of the love that she felt for her son. And I know that after a lifetime being around those struggling with addiction, I will never fully understand their struggle. But that's okay. I know that I can still love those who are just starting in the midst or at the end of their journey. And I know that hope springs eternal, and that despite all the odds, after almost 2 decades of opiate addiction, my cousin Jeremy is clean and sober. My childhood favorite Uncle Wendell is alive and in recovery. And that my own mother, who despite her fear and pain of growing up in a household rent by alcoholism, will sometimes, though rarely, have a beer. It doesn't always make sense, nor does it need to, but then again, neither does love.
Thank you, Daryl. I come from a long line of addicts. Many family members on both sides of my family, including in-laws and chosen family members, have struggled with alcohol, and some have successfully found support and relief, and others have not, or not yet done so. I grew up in an alcoholic family, and as the adult child of an alcoholic, I am aware of how easy it is to abuse alcohol. It is an addictive substance, and the disease can manifest at any time. So while I have not yet suffered from severe alcohol abuse disorder, I do not take its absence in my life for granted. The marks of addiction in my family system are well traveled. I am primed for codependency, that complex emotional matrix of enabling and excusing the destructive behaviors of a person experiencing addiction so that the family members' lives are somewhat bearable. That is my emotional blueprint. Addiction is never isolated to the individual. It is always a communal, familial, patterned experience. In me, this often shows up as eggshelling, self-erasure so as not to make waves of trouble. That has been my primary trouble. Thus, recovery for me has entailed working towards emotional sobriety so that life is bearable. My whole approach to relationships is steeped in these childhood experiences, and my family history manifests itself most often when I am stressed. My first responder in crisis is almost always the powerless 5-year-old within, followed by the angry adolescent. Thus, my work as an adult, such as it is, centers on recognizing the patterns within, responding with self-compassion, and doing the complex work that we call in ACA, reparenting ourselves to a greater wholeness. I am not broken. I am not broken, and neither are my family members. My family members who have suffered and dealt with addiction are not moral failures. We are human beings, living as best we can through the ups and downs of life, and at times struggling to overcome trauma, loss, and difficulty. Those things which arrive on our doorstep through no fault of our own. Unfortunately, though, our models for addiction and recovery make little space for the nuance of such trauma and its lasting impacts, both within an individual who directly experiences trauma and the trauma that gets passed down from generation to generation and becomes deeply patterned as a response to the world. And our models do not make space for marginalization and oppression that systemically impacts those who are found to themselves on the edges of society, our trans and non-binary gender folk, our Black, Brown, and Indigenous folk, anyone who finds themselves on the outside of the idealized white American dream. And it's time for us to change that, to make greater space and nuance, to recognize the ways in which alcohol, though it is very socially acceptable, is not necessarily the best coping mechanism for what ails us. Our ideas around addiction and recovery have been very narrowly defined for the last 100 years or so, and I think if we challenge these with a pinch of curiosity, a generous dash of critical thinking, and a heaping serving of solid scientific inquiry, we might arrive to a new, more compassionate, broad space.
The reigning perspective when it comes to alcohol abuse disorder is this: you are either an alcoholic or you are not. Either you hit rock bottom or you do not. You are an alcoholic if you make a fool of yourself and end up sleeping under a bridge, but otherwise, you're completely fine. Especially if you maintain your career, your house, your family, and your tithing to the church. We're very good at erasing those gray areas when it comes to the despair that people often feel in their lives that they sometimes then turn to alcohol and other substances for. Without this gray area, without this spectrum, we can make no space for the deeper humanity that we all share. The science of alcohol abuse disorder is this: it is highly addictive. And once you stop drinking, it takes 30 days to leave your body completely. Abuse of alcohol is clinically defined as a disease, not as a moral failure. It is a disease. And it comes in mild, moderate, or severe manifestations in human beings. Abuse of alcohol and substances is therefore a progressive, pernicious disease that, left untreated, often results in death, institutions, and jail. The first death that I attended in the hospital as a chaplain was a 36-year-old woman with advanced liver disease as a result of severe alcohol abuse disorder. That was a very, very hard day. I remember realizing how ignorant I was about the outcome of severe alcohol abuse. And I was so angry. I felt like I had been lied to, and I had. For while they often show alcohol abuse in the movies, most often the person dies in a car crash. They don't die in the hospital from liver failure. I wonder how our story would change if we told the truth about that. Because when we kill off in the movies the alcoholic in a car crash, we can rest back easy within ourselves and reaffirm the story that it is choice-based, rather than a pernicious, progressive disease that requires compassionate, science-based, evidence-based treatment. Part of this, I think, and this is not to say you have to stop drinking. Like, let's be really clear. Like, this is not a screed against everyone has to stop drinking right now today. We're not becoming a whole sober living community. Like, it's okay. Just want to put that out there. So if you're feeling stressed out right now, it's okay. You can still breathe. You still have the occasional glass of wine. But I do want to be really clear that that there are many of us who struggle with alcohol addiction. And that there is a pathway forward, that there is hope ahead, and that this community can be a place where all of those truths can live side by side with one another. We are taught that having it all is the ultimate goal in life. And that achievement of the great house and the car and the family and the position at work, that if we have those things, if we achieve those things, that many of our problems will just go away, or at least they will bother us a little bit less. Of course, this is never true. Our problems, our concerns, our worries, our anxieties, our early childhood patterning, those are always with us. And no amount of money, time, fame, success can make those go away. But our society is built on this premise, and our systems of governance and policy are designed to encourage consumption as a driver of economic prosperity. We live in a culture that freaks out whenever GDP is growing less than 2% annually. We are called consumers rather than citizens. And there is a price index that tracks our behaviors such that economic policy can be adjusted to encourage us to spend more, save less, and keep things as they are. And we call this cycle many different things: the rat race, the daily grind, survival of the fittest. Call it what you wish, but notice what it is. Call it what you wish, but notice what it is. A constant cycle of seeking external confirmation of your inherent worth and dignity. It's an ever-evolving cycle of deception. Just as we have talked about the fact that racism is always changing, so is the language around this culture of more. The current media storm of anxiety around quiet quitting is a current example of this. The fear, I would say the ridiculous fear, that somehow people are only going to do the job they are hired to do, and refusing to put up with exploitation, unpaid overtime, and low wages is somehow a problem, is a little bit much. Imagine people just being hired to do the job they were hired to do. It's called going to work. It's called going to work. It seems like quiet quitting would actually be an antidote to that rat race, not the poison. The view from the top, however, is that this is a poison, because the folks that are at the top have arisen there because the system has catapulted them there, not because they are necessarily worthy, but because they are lucky. If we were to change that whole system, it would crumble. It would crumble like the walls of Jericho in that story of old. The ground, though, is shifting for how we think about recovery, addiction, and mental health. I welcome quiet quitting. I promise my committee on ministry that I will not take that too far. When I was a child, nobody talked about mental health, except in hushed whispers. Now we openly talk about the importance of self-care and rest and renewal. We recognize that we cannot be at our best if we only sleep 5 hours a night and never step away from our email, especially in the aftermath, such as we might call it, the aftermath of the pandemic. We are much more aware of the limits of our mental health and this necessity of paying attention to our mental and emotional and spiritual well-being. The shame of admitting you are worn out emotionally, feeling burned out, or struggling with anxiety and depression is, thank goodness, beginning to diminish. Friedrich Nietzsche, that German philosopher active in the mid-1800s and rather proudly misunderstood by current popular culture, which would like to focus on reducing his work to t-shirts announcing that God is dead, offers a radical insight about this topic. He asks this question: what do you consider the most humane? To spare someone shame. What do you consider the most humane? To spare someone shame. What is the seal of liberation, he goes on? To no longer be ashamed in front of one's self. Continuing to treat addiction and recovery as somehow a space for shame keeps us locked into these old ideas, keeps us locked into these old perspectives that addiction is an individual problem rather than a collective symptom of that which we have not managed yet to be responsible and accountable for as a human population. Nietzsche's moral and philosophical commitment was to foster a more humane humanity. This required questioning all doctrines that drain life's energy, however socially prevalent those views might be. That sounds an awful lot like the work we are up to here in this community. To question all doctrines that drain life's energy, however socially prevalent those voices, those views might be. So the invitation is this. The invitation is to participate in shifting those ideas towards greater compassion and understanding right now. We have a major crisis of opioid addiction in this country, and the quiet despair of mild to moderate alcohol abuse, as well as severe alcohol it's hard to get those all out. Severe alcohol abuse disorder, these things are increasingly visible. The boredom of the pandemic led many of us to consume more than we might have otherwise, and part of our recovery from the pandemic includes noticing how limited our options for coping with social isolation really were. And to seek together new ways to create new options that are life affirming and spiritually nourishing. One response that has taken root in the last few years is Dry January. This is part of the sober, curious movement that asks us to examine our reliance on alcohol as a means of social lubrication, and asks us to consider whether or not there might be a better way. It's a radical departure from the binary of yes, no, that gives us all the opportunity to reflect on the social acceptability of alcohol. And even if you did not participate this last January, you still have time. February begins this week. You can have dry February if you would like. And in fact, and here is the radical offer this morning, if you are curious and would like to try this out, you're invited to join me in the following experiment: 100 days free from alcohol. I have done this once before, several years ago, so I can tell you from experience, you will survive. And if you wish to join me in this, just let me know. Send me a text, an email, find me after service. You can start the 100 days even when I am on day 91. If you want to start your 100 days then, that's okay. But from now until, I think it's May 10th, I calculated it yesterday, my 100 days begins. And also, if you are struggling with alcohol abuse or substance abuse, know that there is help available. The 988 and the 211 hotlines can connect you to resources, to counselors, to treatment and other programs or support. We just heard from The Other Side today, which is a fantastic program. Those are available for you. And of course, my door is always open if that's where you need to start. We are deciding in this moment then to create and cultivate healthy spirituality. And that's about as radical as it gets in our modern culture of more, that would like to sell you a fancy yoga retreat in Costa Rica for $5,000. When the truth is that yoga and meditation require just a minimal amount of space, a mostly quiet space where you won't be jumped on by cats or children. Robust spiritual practices, though, are something that we talk about regularly in this community because it's important. Cultivating community, cultivating deep friendship across gender, race, and generational lines, the giving of your time, your talent, and your treasure to causes that you care deeply about and that make the world a better place. These are the workouts of creating a healthy, robust, resilient spirituality. And the results are highly predictable and easily observable. You all know it when you see it. When someone is fully alive, their posture is long, their shoulders are back, their eyes are bright, there is a joy in their being, and you want to be around them. This joy is contagious in the best way possible. And these people who have found that wellspring of joy that comes from having honed and built their healthy spirituality, they are humble, resilient, and integrity-rich human beings who know that we are already enough just as we are. Earlier this week, I was listening to a podcast, and an author by the name of Adam Jablin, who wrote a book called Lotsaholic, which I think sounds fantastic, has said, in fact, that the process for building spiritual health is much the same as it is for building our physical health. He notes that when we are born, we're born with all the muscles that we will ever need. You cannot get more muscles. You have 2 biceps, and that's what you get. You don't get to grow a third. But you can take those biceps that you were given and make them stronger, more limber, and responsive. And he posits that the same is true of our spirituality, that we are born with an endemic, gifted place of our spirituality, that it is part of being human, is to be spiritual. And that when we are children, that spirituality is effortless. We see that so easily. It's why we love to be around the young, because they are so joyful and vibrant and full of life. That's why we want to be around them. It just gets a little harder as we get a little older because we have a lot of experiences in the world, and some of those are quite negative and quite difficult. And so remembering to cultivate and to grow and to strengthen and to hone that internal light, that becomes our work. It starts as a beautiful gift, and then it is our responsibility as we gain adulthood to continue to cultivate and mature that spirituality. And the choice is yours, the choice is mine, and the choice is ours as a community to make about how we want to create a space, a sanctuary for healthy spirituality, where vulnerability and good enoughness are the markers of our shared connections, where recovery is openly discussed, and where we are committed to each other in loving kindness and compassionate support. In fact, it would please me to no end to reclaim that Utah phrase, "This is the place," and make it our own. To say that this is the place where humans are growing to be fully, resplendently, and wholeheartedly themselves. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Amen. We have a ritual to do this morning. Last week, with our tree of prayers, we added tags of encouragement. And this morning, we're going to extend our tree metaphor. Okay, they're there. Okay, good, they're here. By creating a garland of hope. And so we have a couple baskets here. Well, maybe I get a couple people to come forward and help me pass these out. Invite each person to take one of these strings. And when you get your string, you're just going to consider what it is that calls you to this community and what it is that you want to be calling to other people in this community. And then you're going to tie your string to the person next to yours until your row has a string that is longer than one. It could be 3, it could be 5. And when your row is complete, one person from your row, I don't care who it is, can come up and put that tree on, or put that garland on the tree by tying it to one that is already there. And in this way, we will connect all of the strings and further beautify
our tree. So let us begin. As you get your row complete, if you want to connect it to another row, that's fine. And then eventually bring your strand of connection up. I have Face ID up. Just however you want. Okay. 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 Maybe we use one of this. If we just.
That's perfect. I was just doing a temporary fix.
Exactly. Just, just, just. Yeah, thank you. Oh, oh, shit. Hopes are getting away from us. Okay.
My stage fright's kicking in too now, guys.
Yeah. Okay. It's not. Okay. Thank you. Okay.
I invite you now to just rise and sing with me hymn number 401 as we welcome our tree of encouragement, now garland with our hopes for a brighter, more wholesome wholeheartedness. 401. Standing as we extinguish our chalice. We extinguish our chalice, but not the warmth of love, the light of truth, or the energy of action. And we hold each other in our hearts until we meet again. And let that just be our benediction for today. We are a hopeful and grounded community, building those muscles of spiritual hospitality, warmth, and compassion, such that this place is the place where humans can find and know themselves as truly beautiful. Please be seated for the closing. The children are back, and we have a wonderful closing piece with David Lane.
Good morning, everyone. I hope that the Reverend will allow me just a moment. I too am a adult child. I'm also a childish adult, which is a different thing. So I think I've come a long way. It's been a really long road, and it's taken a long time to move through a bunch of different phases. My dad died when he was 49. I was 21. And the last 6 years of his life, he had gotten sober. I was off away at college. He had gotten sober and had actually become the director of a alcohol rehabilitation clinic. And so I sometimes wish that I had sort of taken place, or I had been there while he went through the stuff that I later figured out, I later kind of pieced together. And I hope that the industry, and it is an industry, is beginning to make inroads in terms of what helps and what is at the base of that. One of the things in my own understanding of it is that people say the word disease a lot, and I believe that, of course. I was told that, but I didn't really understand that. It didn't really sink in. Now I have a full understanding of that. When my father drank, he became better. He became better. He became a better man. I know that sounds crazy. That is crazy, but that's the truth. And that is a kind of thing that needs to be understood. He was more whole. He was more centric. He dealt with with Nietzsche's lack of meaning in the world. He was better until he wasn't. That's a big key too. A lot of things have changed, and this has resonated with me. This tune that I was asked to do is by Casey Musgraves. It's not a tune. It is by a singer-songwriter, which of course is up my alley. But it's not really a tune that I would have chosen for myself, although I very much like it. So I will attempt to do it justice. Grew up in the sticks where there ain't no light. The stars were big and bright. And if they told me no, I would always wonder why. I tried to be good, keep my head down, but there was too much sky around. And my daddy said, keep looking up, let the world bring you down. Keep your head in the clouds and keep your feet on the ground. Keep looking up. Keep looking up. Come to me in different ways, beautiful and strange. I've seen fire burning in the sky, things that I can't explain. I've seen truth step into the light, true love turn into pain. But I keep looking up, don't let the world bring you down. Keep your head in the clouds, keep your feet all of the time. Keep looking up. Keep looking up. Oh, keep looking up. Keep looking up. Keep looking up. Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Have a great week.